The 8th of May 2025, the wind industry, more on it. One of the problems I have with a short video, if I make a short video, if you go to upload it, it goes to the short videos. You can't stop it. And I have to do research now to see what number of minutes, what's the minimal number of minutes I can do before I can get it on the ordinary YouTube. I've got expert advice, nothing can be done. Now, I want to look at some of the comments. There was comments made there on my channel. And one comment was made by Hollow Who Cares. Should a community-based wind and solar farm, if they insist on them, in other words, if they insist on wind and solar farms, should they be community-based? We pay, so we own them, instead of us paying for a huge private company to get profit. Not in favour of them, unless in a non-populated area. Now, so just thank you for that comment. And I can't read them all out, what time. Well, the thing about it is, supposing the community had a whole heap of people retiring and people coming home from America and England and that, and they put in a big pool of money and decide to build like Rara wind farm, they gather up, well, what would they gather up? 5 million, and then they'll borrow off the markets and all of that. They borrow maybe off the banks or whatever, and the banks will get the money by issuing a bond, and usually a 10-year bond. So they build it and they run it. Now remember, it will make an operating profit probably in the first few years before it gets too old. We'll not deal with that too much. It'll make some bit of a profit, and it'll pay the interest on the loan, a little bit to the shareholders who put in the 5 million, but it will not be able to pay the capital cost. It cannot pay the capital cost. So right, the bond, the people that loan the money will do for 10 years. They'll take the interest. But what are they going to do then when the principal becomes due? Where's that money going to come from? So in fact, you're deferring the initial capital cost 10 years, and the bondholder is stuck. This is why I reckon this could bring down the whole world economy. Do you understand that? So why would you like to be a community that bought 10 years ago, and you're now in the last 6 months, and the bond has to be paid, and there's not a penny in the accounts? Does that make sense? Now, 1089 John has a good post there. I can't read it all out. But don't forget, the Irish had to gather in diesel engines. They're burning 56 lorry loads of diesel fuel per day to keep the lights on. Now, so James 1TK9 says, Val, that isn't how it works in practice. We evaluate it by life cycle costing. First I ever heard of it. I did a 4-year degree with the Institute of Public Administration, concentrating on financial management and accounting, and I never heard of life cycle costing before. So there's a new invention. Ultimately, the state would bail the statutory undertaker out. So, all right, so it's just our taxes. And of course, that is taxed. I don't get the idea how, if the state bails out the company, we haven't found the state bailing them out directly yet. What the state did was, at the time of the pandemic, they gave everyone a bit of money off their bills, which is a sort of a bailout, but it's not a direct bailout. So I'm not able to follow you there. And of course, it's taxed. How would you tax a bailout? If the state gives 20 million to a wind farm, how does it tax it? Don't forget, government subsidy. This is significant. The government subsidy is, you have a guaranteed price of 76 euros, about, maybe it's a bit more now. And then if the price of any of the fuels in the market of the generating of fossil fuel, it goes up, goes higher, they pay them the highest price. So if oil happens to go way up through the roof, we'll say to 6,000 euros a barrel or whatever, and they have to pay, the wind companies have to get 6,000 per megawatt hour. That's exaggerated. We'll say 1,000. So they get the highest price in the mix, in the market mix. And that's the biggest. There is a couple of wee bits of carbon things. It's not much. That's the guarantee they get. That's the subsidy. Now, what I haven't fully figured out is why some company doesn't go and have no windmills. That's somewhere I'm a wee bit grey on, and please, we'll come to that in due course. Now, Walter Browning says, that's the name of a gun, isn't it? Walter was one and Browning was another. The Danish group Ørsted have invested a heap of money in Irish wind farms. So too the Norwegian company Statkraft, part owned by the Norwegian government, with many other highly regarded companies. Who's highly regarding them? All of them are actively seeking further investment opportunities in Ireland. Now, Val, if you are correct, these companies are deliberately trying to lose billions of euros. Good point. No, a bad point. Why should they be doing this? Any ideas? Fair enough, he's not saying I have to answer, he said, give it a go there. Very good, that's all right. Why don't they just keep the money in the bank? Of course, we might do the logical thing and, sorry, you don't have to read more, and assume they are making a sizable profit. That's a good post. That's a good post. Now, just leave that, I'm coming to it in a minute. We'll see what else there is. Now, Theresa Dixon posted 4,800 in the Republic megawatts of wind energy. Now, fair enough. And Mark Donnelly makes the point that these wind farms, when they were initiated, electricity was cheaper. Yeah, it was, but they didn't have to pay as much. It was about 2 million a megawatt. Was that right? Yeah, a megawatt. Back a while there. It was actually 1.3 away back in a while. It goes up all the time. Now, anyway, we'll not dwell on what the capital cost is. We know rah here with 5 turbines was 30 billion, and we know that Kuhn Amakio in Cork, Kuhn Amakio in Cork, a tongue twister. It cost 81 million for 41 megawatts in 2008. So now then someone here says X, Y, Z. So we all get our own generators and use no more grid power. Well, that's the way they're trying to push us. But think of the social mayhem. You're living in an estate in a semi-detached house and the lad next door has a big generator running. Noise knows no bounds. You won't generate electricity with that noise. I mean, that'll not be nice, and that'll be running all night. There was a pub in Cavan one time the electricity was cut off, and they had a big hired generator and smoke coming out of it, and there was terrible complaints. It was only for a few days. So that's the blooming problem. Here on the farm, I have so many things to do. I like to pay for my electricity and get it done. Do you know? And I have bits of hobbies I like to do. And it's no hobby getting a big old diesel generator out in the shed and you have to bolt it down a little Robert and having it charging up battery cells and giving me electricity. Where's the novelty in that? Sure, my father had that in 1940. And you drive me back to that. And there was an old lad lived in this house and he says, you can't read Curly Wee in the Independent. He used to read Curly Wee, and Curly Wee is still in the Independent. That was the kind of a man he was. He was a highly intelligent man, but he used to love Curly Wee. But anyway, he said, you can only read Curly Wee. He had a water wheel in the river and he had a wind turbine. I have it there in the room. When there's a flood or a gale. That's what he said. So do we really want to go back to the Stone Age? Isn't that what this all amounts to? Now, so I'm going to answer a Walter Browning point now, and we're going to look at that. So here's a report from the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, 23 hours ago. There you are. You get yourself there. It's by Justin Rowlatt, climate editor. And blow to clean energy drive as major wind farm is ditched. In a significant blow to the government's clean energy ambitions, the Danish energy company Ørsted has cancelled plans for a huge wind farm off the coast of East Yorkshire. Hornsby 4 project. Now, I think Hornsby had 4 projects, and there's some of them already built. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm only dealing with 4. 4 projects would have become one of the biggest offshore wind farms in the world with potential capacity of 2.4 gigawatts. That's a lot. 2.4 gigawatts. There's 1,000 megawatts in a gigawatt. Enough to power more than 1 million homes. They should have put in 7,000 billion homes. The only thing, there isn't 7,000 billion homes in the UK. It might be in the whole world. Anyway, they're not stuck for zeros. They'll always find a few. So wonderful. Oh, it's wonderful. Oh, it's wonderful. Austin said the project no longer made economic sense. Now, what did Val Martin tell you there? Where's me? I had it there. Airgrid promised a load factor, an output of 32.4, and they got 15.8. I did the figures for you. And they got less the year before. Despite signing a €15 contract with the UK government guaranteeing to sell power at an agreed price. So that's the price. That's the price. A minimum price of about €76, so you can convert about 70 sterling. And if the price goes up for oil and fuel, they get that price. The UK's offshore wind sector had faced soaring costs in recent years, as the government has acknowledged. Well, I mean, the cost of the coupon, the cost of interest went up. Everyone has to pay your loan interest. And the capital cost is going up. So as the capital cost goes up, the chances of them paying back the capital cost is less. A spokesman for the Department of Energy, Net Zero, that's DESNZ, said it recognised the effect of globally high inflation. And why are they printing the money? Sure, we didn't ask them to print any money. And supply chain constraints. See, you need more grid. Put up more wires or more pylons. More copper. Digging copper out of the ground and manufacturing it using fuel. And stringing it all along the country. Are having an industry across Europe. All this old fancy word, supply chain constraints. Why can't they use basic English? I did my course and I got an honour in it. And while some of them big words were in it, when I was doing my exam, I just wrote my own language. We don't use these big words here. Believe what some people post underneath here, words that never was heard of before. But this is the second developer to pull out of a major offshore project. Now, does that answer your question, Walter Browning? I'm glad you used that name because I can remember it. There's the second one after being ditched. The Swedish company Vattenfall halted development of a 1.4 gigawatt wind farm off the coast of Norfolk in 2023, again due to rising costs. It's not rising costs, it's that no matter what the costs are, they can't pay them. They can't pay them when they were cheap, and they're certainly not going to pay them when they are dear. The project was sold to a German energy company, RWE, which has said its plans to see through the project. So now they keep selling it on. There's the third crowd now. They're going to make money where the other two don't. So Walter Browning, they're looking for the idiot. They tried the Danes, they tried the statecraft, is that what you call them? And now they're trying the Germans, and maybe they'd fall for it. Sure, and the Germans fall. They never make small mistakes. Never make small mistakes. However, the difficulty offshore developers are facing raise significant questions about the viability of government's clean plans for 2030. One of the Labour government's central missions. The Labour government. They got their asses kicked there in the recent election. Will Starmer stay there? He's Greta Thunberg turned male. That's all he is. He wants to go to war against Russia. In order to meet that target, the UK will need triple offshore wind capacity. And you see, it still doesn't do anything. Who's going to pay for it? The bill payer. Are you going to be able to cut down fossil fuel with it? No. What's the output of these? 15.8%. Offshore might give 2% extra, 0.2%. If it's 15.8 onshore, you get about 16 onshore. There was a book on that, The Wind Farm Scam, by John Edrington, I think it was his name, and he explained that there's big problems with scale building up on the blades and all that. That's offshore. The ones here, there was a crowd up cleaning the blades here on the one in Rara last week, and when they're onshore, there builds up bugs and scale and salt and everything. Have you that? So the Labour crowd, they want this. Of course they do. And sure, if the Conservatives was a good government, there'd be no Labour. Now you have reform moving in another turf. Just over half the country's power currently comes from wind. That's a lie. That is a no-just lie. And you know the Drax power station in England? There's a fisherman over here fishing. He told me that there comes a train into it every 10 minutes. A full row of trains going in. And the Eden Dairy Power Plant, a lorry load of the wood that they grow, that Monsanto's grass or whatever the hell it is, willow, only lasts 8 minutes. And they're bringing the stuff into Ireland and into Drax from South America, and they call that green. It gets a green certificate. What a crowd of lying villains they are. So they say half it comes from wind and solar. It does not. Wind, solar, nuclear. Nuclear is a totally different animal altogether. Why are they mixing up wind, solar and nuclear and biomass? Nuclear is a proper part. Why don't they say half it comes from oil, coal and gas as well? Because they're lying. So that's that. In order to meet that target, the UK will need triple offshore wind capacity and double the amount of solar and onshore wind in the systems, according to estimates by Aurora Energy. You'll find they have their snouts in the trough as well. And a big upgrade of the electricity grid. Locals are pushing back at the project of major new energy infrastructure near their homes. Some industry experts, such as Conservative and Reform parties, say the 2000 targets are not achievable. Dieter Helm, Professor of Economics, I know him and met him, at University of Oxford, has long argued building out this infrastructure in the timescale would be near impossible. You see, they don't. This is a religion. This is a religion, folks. So now that helps to answer Walter's 16 minutes. Not too bad. We'll go on to another one. Now, Ofsted. So this is the big brags there was about Ofsted. Ofsted to discontinue the Hornsey 4 offshore wind project. Is that the same one? Sorry if I'm repeating myself. Anyway, there it's there. So they're decided to discontinue the Hornsey. They decided to discontinue it. They're pulling out. That's enough. That's enough. And they give a bit of it. That's their own website there. So that's a bit of the same thing. We remain fully committed to being an important partner to the UK government to help them achieve their ambitious targets for offshore wind build-out. Now, they won't be getting British Petroleum because they're after dumping the whole green stuff out the window. So that's more or less the same thing from what I can see. So there's evidence they're not going ahead. And here's more of it here on Wikipedia about it. It explains it as well, so we needn't go there again. We can go then to... I have my point there about the cost, and then we can go to Green Cork Renewables signs a second deal with data centre company. Now we're moved away from Ofsted and all the other companies and Statecraft, and we're going to Irish Green Cork Renewables. And here's the article in the Irish Times. And so what did it say? Wind and solar energy group Green Cork Renewables, its share price is down to 72 this morning, has signed a second agreement with a Singapore-based real estate investment trust to supply power for its Dublin data centres. They don't do anything small. The deal with Keppel DC, REIT, will run 10 years. So there's the bond, you see, 10 years. And follow a similar deal signed last year. Keppel will purchase renewable electricity generated from Green Cork Renewables Ballincollig Wind Farm in County Kerry. We must have a look at their accounts, but I won't do it today, please. Now, how are the data centres, which are based all over the country and in Dublin, going to make sure the power they get comes from the Ballincollig Wind Farm, which is an annual output of 31.5 gigawatts? A gigawatt hour is a unit of energy equivalent to 1 million kilowatt hours. No, a gigawatt hour is a unit of energy equivalent to 1 million kilowatt hours. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. The purchase power agreement, if they got it wrong, I wouldn't hang them. It's multiples of 1,000. A watt is about a candle. And then 1,000 kilowatt, so I'm not hanging people on wee minor mistakes. They get on to me for spelling a word wrong and me doing it up on the tractor, digging a hole or something on the digger, and then, you got it spelled wrong, The purchase power agreement are part of Keppel's plans to decarbonise the two data centres in City West and Ballycoolan. They're in North County Dublin. By 2030, by ensuring the power they use over the next 10 years is a source from renewable energy. That is a full, complete and utter lie. But it does allow that wind farm, which we will look at, to get its capital cost paid out by a lie that the electricity they get from the mains grid comes from there. And you might as well say that this light here comes from Ballycollig wind farm. So there's the way they're going. They're not that stupid in ways. If they hadn't them data centres, they wouldn't be able to use that trick. The new agreement helps to meet that target ahead of schedule, but it also supports Keppel's sustainability target by introducing renewable energy to at least 50% of its coal-related assets in 2030. So how are they going to supply the electric? What's going to happen when there's no wind? Where are they going to get their energy from? They add up the capacity over a year at 15%. And then they take the capacity used, the electricity used by the data centre. And because the wind farm is running a lot of the time, they divide one into the other and they say it's 50%. That is a total lie. A total lie. And you see, they're using these data centres. This is how the data centres try to prove they're green. And we have to pay the costs. So it would look from this that they're trying to get away from you and I paying for the fact that they cannot ever repay their capital costs to getting some other bigger company to pay for it. That would look like what's going on there. Digital Reach Ireland is delighted to meet our 2030 targets by using 100% Irish renewable energy. That is a lie. Isn't it some country we live in when you can't get on to any media or anything else and challenge that? I did it several times. The energy regulator will not back you. The advertising standards will not back you. And the Irish Times media, the people who supervise the Irish Times, will not back you because they're quoting the company. Irish Times is not saying it. It's the company. So it's the same as I come along and say all the migrants here come from the Philippines, and that's not right. You can't really check the Irish Times. You can't bring them up for it. You can take me up and say you're wrong, but I'm not covered by the legislation. Do you see the trick of it? For 4 operations, 5 years ahead of schedule, said Gary Watson, county manager of Keppel DC Ireland. We firmly believe that delivering on our commitment will help our clients achieve their sustainability goals and solidify us as their partner of choice. Keppel Investments is income-producing real estate assets primarily used for data centres and has been active in the Irish market for the past decade. In 2017, it acquired a Dataplex site in Ballycullen for 66 million. This is the 6th power purchase agreement signed by Greencoat Portfolio, covering around 540 gigawatts of renewable energy. One of Europe's leading listed owners and operators of renewable energy infrastructure assets, we see a significant opportunity to provide renewable electricity to the growing Irish data centre, said Paul O'Donnell, partners of Schroeder Greencoat. Now, so you see that now, there's 23 minutes. You see that now, what they're doing. They can't pay the capital cost of their wind farms, so they'll try to dump it on the data centres. What have the data centres done to our carbon credits? They have increased the demand for electricity by nearly 200 megawatts. Sorry, 2,000 megawatts. It used to be about 4.5 was the average. Now it's right up to 7.5, not 8. So now they stick us with this. They put the farmer off the land for having emissions. They invite in the data centres and then they grease the hands of Greencoat and get them out of an unbelievable hole by getting the data centre to lie about its electricity. How are they getting the power from Ballincollig up to Ballycullen in Dublin? Is there a special line? The answer is they're taking it from the same as you and me, and because they bail out Greencoat Renewables with money, they expect the public to believe that they are actually using renewable energy. Does any of you disagree with that? Any of you want to come on and debate it? The whole thing is a massive Ponzi scheme supported by the government and ultimately allowed by the failure of regulation for truth in Ireland. It's very, very hard to catch them on any of this because the regulators will simply shut you down and say, no, I've tried it several times. Okay, coming underneath, I've answered all the questions now put by Walter Browning, and get back to me now and we'll come at it again if we need. Just see if there are any more on it here. The share price of Greencoat is 72.6. So would the injection of money from Singapore help their share price? Don't know. That's the only possible place it can come from. No, that's it, folks. I've said enough. Right, I hope I'm helping you to understand the scam of it. Isn't it unbelievable? The falsehoods. I often wonder, was these falsehoods going on before I came on the scene? I only came on the scene about 2008 or there, and I began to expose the lies of our society. They're claiming they can plug into the hole of the plug on the wall for their data centres, send money over to Greencoat Renewables, big lump of money, and claim that the electricity they're using comes from Ballincollig wind farm. Huh? Then people say I'm ranting. Oh, you're on a roll tonight. It is frustrating to see such lies and cheating going on. The quicker the whole thing collapses, the better. The quicker this green stuff brings down the EU, and I see there where the EU is now determined to stop the importation of all fuel from Russia. That's great, because that will help to bring down the EU altogether. Unless we get rid of that lying institution, we'll hardly ever get out of this. Okay, folks, we'll see you back. Have I answered your question? Thank you all very much. You're getting educated here big time. Bye-bye.